This is our annual midwinter conference, a smaller version of our summer conference where we get folks together. A little smaller attended, but we really focus a lot on just fundamentals that municipal officials need to do their job and help educate. It's a way to kick off the new year. And we have a great crowd, over 500 attendees, and we're very, very thrilled, and we've had nothing but good comments on the education that our municipal officials are receiving. Our message is transforming your ideas into reality. And so what we're trying to do is, last year it was a lot of newly elected officials and giving them just the basics, and now we're building on the basics. And so when you have your ideas, I already know what I want to do, and this trying to give them the tools to turn those ideas into reality, and that's what we're trying to do, is give them the tools to do that. It's very important. Louisiana, 53% of their citizens live in municipal governments, and municipal governments, a lot of them are the centers of the parish. They're the parish seats. They're the centers of commerce and so forth. And so it's really important that mayors and council members get, and clerks and other officials get the education to really understand how to run their town and run it efficiently and be able to provide those services to their residents. Trying to educate a lot of, we're very rural. 80% of our municipalities are under 5,000. So, and there are, as you probably heard in the media, there are rural towns. Some of them are having issues with their tax base and revenue problems, and also infrastructure problems. So a lot of these workshops are giving them tools to be able to, how can I get grants? How can I get funding for our infrastructure? How can we get grants for broadband? One of our big initiatives this year is to work with state leaders and private industry to get broadband into our rural areas, because without broadband, in my opinion, and the opinion of the LMA, if you build it, they will come. So I think it's very important, and I think that's also a message in a lot of states around the South.
This is our smaller conference, our midwinter conference, and it really is geared to sort of start the year off right for municipal elected officials, appointed officials, but also really any employee of a municipality. And so this year, by design, we always love that basic information, but we've actually selected some new curricula to kind of inspire people to take their leadership to the next level. So our theme is actually transforming your vision into reality. So it's been a really great conference. Municipal government is only as good as the people who are invested in it. So the vision that you have for your community's future is within your grasp. It just needs to be you need to be very thoughtful and intentional about the way that you go about bringing that to life. And so that's what we're here to do today, is to try to empower our municipal officials to do that. All politics is local, and I think that's absolutely true. Local government leaders have their boots on the ground. They are the closest to the people. And so if you want to see change, if you want to see improvement, both on a state level and even a national level, that starts at the local government level. We've had wonderful attendance from our municipal officials who are really engaged in what we're doing. And of course, we have the pleasure of welcoming and hosting a lot of statewide elected officials as well, including the governor, who is speaking at our luncheon. So it's nice. It's a nod from our statewide leaders as to how important local government leaders are.
What we're doing here is gathering all the municipalities in the state of Louisiana to gather information on technology, water infrastructure, all of the problems that mayors are having in their cities, also to get information for new mayors and new aldermen who have just come in so they can know what to do, and when something happens, called LMA. LMA is the go-to people for any of the officials in Louisiana. So we appreciate the fact that they are there for us, and they always know that they have somebody there to help them. My message for today is a vision for the future, especially for small towns and small cities in Louisiana. We need to let all of the big cities know all around the country that small towns and small cities, they are the front porch of America. It's great. I like meeting all of the new people here and everybody networking and exchanging information, exchanging problems, solutions, and answers. So we all help one another, because at some point in time, we all face the same problem.
Since his election in 2016, Governor Edwards has faithfully attended almost every major LMA event, providing valuable updates on the state of the state. We value our strong working relationship with the governor and his administration, and we're deeply honored to have him here today to address our membership. On a personal note, when I was in Arkansas receiving treatments, the governor contacted me several times, and I truly, truly appreciate that, Governor, because it lifted my spirits, really did. Without further ado, please join me in giving a warm LMA welcome to Louisiana's Governor, John Bel Edwards.
Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity to be with you again today. I was just talking to John. I believe I've been to each of your meetings at least once a year. And so this will be my 5th time. I am really happy to be here for a 5th time. Because had the election gone the other way, it wouldn't have happened for me. So I'm really, really happy to be here with you. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you over the next 4 years. And generally speaking, I can just tell you our state is much better, much stronger today than it was 4 years ago. But we still have challenges. And nobody knows that better than you all do. Because you're on the front lines every day of dealing with those challenges. And what I know is that in order for me to be the best governor that I can be, I have to be really good partners with you all. Because every one of your constituents is also one of mine. And so the degree to which we can work together and solve those challenges and improve people's lives, that's how we're going to be successful. But I can't do it without you. And so I want to thank you for your service. It is not an easy time right now to be in public service. I don't know that it's ever been easy. You can't go to the dollar store to pick up a loaf of bread without talking to 3 or 4 people on the way in. And then the cashier wants to ask you about a problem while you're checking out. And then before you can get to your car, there's 2 or 3 or 4 more people. I know what that's like. It's always been tough. But today with social media the way it is, it's harder than ever. But the fact of the matter is the vast majority of people that you never hear from, they're pretty well satisfied, right? But the ones who are not, they're going to make sure that they're heard. But very few of those people will themselves step up and run for office. And so that's why I really want to salute everyone in this room, because you did step up. You ran for office. You put yourself out there at a very difficult time. And so if there's anybody in the state who can understand how significant that is and what sacrifices you make and that your family make in order for you to serve, it's me. And so I do appreciate every one of you, especially you 70 new mayors, 70 new mayors out there. There were 155 municipal elections last year. We have 70 new mayors, which sort of tells you we don't really need term limits because we have them. It's called every 4 years there's an election. And when the voters want to make a change, they know how to make a change. So in any event, the governor's office does have term limits. It's 2 terms, and I just want you to know that's mighty fine with me. Now, I'm going to serve this term, and I'm going to go do something else. But I do want you to know I'm going to work every single day for these next 4 years to make sure that we continue to make progress. The relationships that we forge between local and state government impact the success of our communities. I'm committed to continuing that strong partnership that we have enjoyed. I appreciate your leadership, both your elected leadership, but also John Gallagher and his staff at the Louisiana Municipal Association. And there is not a major effort that we undertake in the state of Louisiana through my administration that we don't involve the Municipal Association. I want you to know that we are stronger today. We don't have a crisis in Louisiana unless we create one. Unlike 4 years ago when we had the largest budget deficit in the history of our state. So we have turned the corner on that. We've actually produced surpluses each of the last 3 years. We've started investing again in critical priorities such as education. And for the first time in 10 years, this current year, the one we're in right now, we're investing more in early childhood, in K through 12, and in higher education, to include the first teacher pay raise in 10 years. That is really important for the future of our state. And my number one priority for new investments in education in the second term, and it's not the only place we're going to make investments, but it will be in early childhood education. And just put succinctly, we've had achievement gaps in Louisiana for longer than we care to remember. We haven't produced the educational outcomes that we want. And one of the reasons, and I think the principal reason, is we have too many kids showing up to school and they're not ready to learn. 80% of a person's brain development happens before they're 4 years old. If you wait till they're 4 and 5 and 6 years old to engage them, you've waited too long. And so if we will do a better job of early childhood education, more kids will start school ready to learn, and that is a difference that will stay with them all the way through high school and into college, which what that means is that's a difference that's going to stay with them throughout their lives. And we have to commit ourselves to that, and you're going to see us doing that at the state of Louisiana. I'm happy to tell you that the economy of the state is the largest it has ever been, and the Bureau of Economic Analysis out of Washington, D.C. put out a report a few weeks ago. Our economy is the 4th fastest growing in the United States of America today. We've landed 211 major economic development project wins, creating 40,000 new jobs, retaining over 36,000 jobs, and bringing in $42 billion in new capital investment. And I'm happy to tell you that of our 64 parishes, more than 40 benefited from these economic development wins last year. So we still have some work to do, and we have to make sure that economic development is spread across the state of Louisiana. But we are doing better, and we're committed to do even better going forward. I know the theme of this conference is transforming vision into reality. And you know, it really is easy to have a vision for improvement, but transforming that vision into the reality is the hard part. And that's where you're going to spend your time, working with all the people in your towns and villages and cities and so forth. And I'm excited about what you can accomplish, what we can accomplish over the next 4 years as we work together to do that. And I hope when you know, and that when you talk to your constituents, that you will let them know that it is my intention. I'm going to make every effort to be a governor for everyone in Louisiana, north, south, rural, urban, black, white, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter. The election was last year. We're governing now, and we're going to keep doing that over the next 4 years. I am mindful because I travel all the time, but particularly in the election last year, my pace of travel picked up considerably, and I met people all over the state. And I know that particularly in some of our rural areas, we have people who feel like they have been forgotten perhaps or left behind. And I know that there are particular challenges in rural Louisiana, as there are in every part of rural America today. And we're going to make a concerted effort to work with you all to do something to revitalize rural communities across the state of Louisiana and make sure they know that we haven't forgotten them. And that's going to look like more access to educational opportunities, workforce development, like apprenticeships, like dual enrollment, so that high school students, regardless of their zip code, get an opportunity to earn college credits while they're still in high school, or maybe an entire associate's degree, which sometimes can happen, or maybe it's an industry-based credential that will allow them to get a much, much better job. This is critically important for our state. You know, the Master Plan for Higher Education in Louisiana envisions that within 10 years, by 2030, 60% of all working age adults will have some post-secondary credential or degree. And when we are successful, we will transform our state and unleash a potential for economic development and investment that we've never seen before. So I'm excited about that, and certainly we are not going to leave rural Louisiana out of that equation. We're going to continue to land major economic development deals, and not only bigger, in bigger, more urban areas, but also in rural areas too. You know, it's good to focus on the success of DXC technology in New Orleans. It was in 2017 the second best economic development project anywhere in the country. It's still the largest one in the history of the state of Louisiana. But it's also important to have economic development wins in places like Lake Providence, Louisiana, in East Carroll Parish, where 50 jobs with Epic Piping has an even bigger impact on that local economy per capita than the largest economic development project in the history of our state in DXC Technologies. And so I get excited when we're able to bring economic development wins to rural Louisiana and see what positive impact that makes in those communities. So all of that is important. We're going to continue the ongoing process of addressing Louisiana's rural water infrastructure. It's a very challenging issue for our state and for many of you in this room. I know that. That was part of our conversation at the table over lunch just a few minutes ago. But I'm going to encourage the people in this room, if you are an alderman or a mayor of a village or a town that has a fraction of the population that it had maybe 3 or 4 decades ago when the infrastructure was put in place, you're going to have to think differently and act differently in order to sustain that going forward. And look for opportunities to partner with neighbors so that both of you don't bear the full cost of maintaining and operating these systems if in fact you can collaborate together and do that more efficiently. And I know that it's hard for people to give up total control over something, but if you can't support it, you can't support it. And so I'm asking you to think outside the box. We can help you. We have an infrastructure initiative that was actually put into law last year in the legislature where we can come in and we can help. We've already done that in a number of areas. But quite frankly, what we can't do is allow these systems to deteriorate to the point where you need new wells, new treatment facilities, and new distribution lines, because the cost of that is something we just simply can't afford when you look at all the places that will need that. And then once we make these investments, we really need to make sure that those investments are protected and the systems are properly maintained and so forth. And I know these things are important to you all, but I'm just asking that we start thinking a little bit differently, acting a little bit differently so that we can make these things work. Another bit of progress that we made is we've increased the funding for both LGAP and the Community Water Enrichment Fund to $15 million each. I know that is important for all of you, and I'm going to encourage you to make the absolute very best use of the funding that comes to you from these particular programs, and make it match your highest priorities to the extent that you can. And I know I'm here in a room full of leaders, and I would certainly be remiss if I didn't talk to you about one of the top threats that are facing governments today, that is hacking and cybersecurity. You may not have been hit yet in your town or in your city, but it's a question of when, not if. And when it happens, it is very, very problematic. And you know, these are entrepreneurial folks out there who are pretty smart. They got a good business model that they follow. And you go in one Monday morning and you turn on your computers and you don't have any data. But you get a message on your computer screen says that if you will pay in Bitcoin this amount by such and such time, then you'll get your data back. Now, I don't want anybody paying that ransom, because if you do, then their business model is affirmed and they're going to keep doing this over and over. But we have our cybersecurity task force. We have an emergency support function at GOSEP now that deals with cybersecurity. We can help, but I need you all to do what you can now to make sure that those attacks, when they happen, they are not successful. That you are backing up your data frequently and that data is kept behind a firewall that has the protections necessary to make sure that they cannot grab all of that information. And that if they're successful, they only get something that happened that day as opposed to all of the information that you have. But if you think that this is something easily overcome, go talk to one of the 8 or 10 school systems that have been hit since last July. Go talk to the city of New Orleans. Go talk to various sheriff's departments or the convention center. They actually hit the state of Louisiana on the Monday after the election in November. So this is going to happen. And so I'm asking you all to do what you can to be prepared for it. For those of you who can afford it, and I don't know exactly how expensive this is, they actually have cybersecurity insurance now that you can buy so that when you are forced to respond, you can recoup a large part of what your expenses were. And Louisiana actually leads the nation in where we are on cybersecurity because of the commission that we started a few years ago, because of the work they're doing at the Cyber Innovation Center up in North Louisiana, the public-private partnerships that we have in place, and the experience that we're developing pretty quickly responding to these attacks. But it's a whole lot better to put in a little effort and expense up front and protect yourselves from the attacks than just reacting after you've been successfully attacked. The state of Louisiana has technical experts with the state police, with the National Guard, with the Office of Information Technology. And so we want to be there to help if this ever happens to you all. I think that's all I want to say about cybersecurity. Another thing that I want to talk to you about that's going to happen this year is critically important. And it's not just critically important for the state, it's critically important for everyone in this room, and that is the census. Do everything you can to promote the census in your area so that everyone is counted. That is how resources flow from so many federal sources of funding that are tied to the results of that census. And so please promote the census in your communities and make sure that everyone is counted. And we are going to do that from the state level as well. I signed an executive order that created the Louisiana Complete Count Committee to increase awareness and participation in the census throughout Louisiana. But this is one of those areas where I really need your partnership because people will listen to you. And there's only so much we can do from Baton Rouge to really get into the forefront of people's consciousness about this, but hopefully you will go out and do this. The census will be paperless this year. This will be the first time, we do the full census every 10 years. It will be paperless. This is going to be a big change, and it's going to be an adjustment for a lot of citizens. And it is possible to request paper, but you actually have to go online to make the request. So I don't know how that's going to work. We're going to need all hands on deck. So we're going to work hard every single day with you all. I do want to make sure that you know that in addition to me just saying that we want to be better partners, you should take note that we fought through the largest budget deficit in the history of our state. And I did not seek, as I was asked to do by a lot of people, I did not seek to balance the budget on the backs of local government. I didn't do it for municipalities. I didn't do it for police juries. I didn't do it for sheriff's offices and school boards. And when we can be of assistance, I want you to not hesitate to call on us. And I want to make sure that you know my staff that is in this room, whose job it is to interface with you all when you need something. And it is led by Toy Taylor, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Government Affairs. Toy, stand up. Yep. And I'll do this to him, I don't mind. Y'all all need to have his phone number. And especially you 70 new mayors, you may not know how often you're going to need him, and maybe you never will. But make sure you know Toy Taylor and that you have his number, but also Roderick Scott, who is the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. Roderick, would you please stand? Roderick does a good job. And quickly, the Director of Rural Revitalization. And I picked someone who is from rural Louisiana. He's from Winsboro, a longtime member of the legislature, both in the House and in the Senate, and then back to the House, wasn't it? Noble Ellington. And so Noble, if you'll stand up and... So I also have with me today Christina Stevens, who's the Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications, Shauna Sanford, who works for me, Alicia Williams, Joseph Hollins, who is my special assistant. I've got Alan Robinson from the Restore program and Jace Jinko, who also works in communications. So I'm just going to ask you all to be as optimistic about our state as I am. Let's make sure that when you leave office, whenever that is, when I leave office, that we all have a better, stronger state, that your communities, that your villages, towns, and cities are stronger as well, and let's work together to make that happen. Don't forget to offer prayers for our country and for our state, and if we will do those things, I am absolutely convinced that at the end of our terms and when we relinquish our offices, our citizens are going to be much, much better off. So thank you all again for the opportunity to be with you today, and God bless each and every one of you.
It's great. We're very thrilled. We have to have the governor will be speaking at the lunch. We've had Ron Holofield with SGR Resources. He gave a great kickoff yesterday on our keynote address on how the importance of communicating among officials and getting along and such. So I think that set the tone for our conference, and we've had great response. A lot of people are coming up to me saying how much they're enjoying it, and so I think it's very positive.